So many of you have probably heard about the dreaded 4-month sleep regression from parents who've already been through it, and they have warned you about sleepless nights and exhausting days. But would you like to know how thousands of families have managed to successfully navigate the 4-month sleep regression without resorting to harsh sleep training and cry out methods? Well, in today's video, I will show you the perfect strategies that I have used throughout my nannying career that have helped babies and parents get their sleep back on track. So what is the 4-month sleep regression? Well, it is a period of time when your little one's sleep becomes disrupted, when they start fighting sleep, struggling to fall back to sleep, waking more frequently at night. And it is usually triggered by environmental and developmental changes. Now, although it's called the 4-month sleep regression, it can happen any time between 3 and 5 months. And not all babies will necessarily go through a 4-month sleep regression. In fact, sleep regressions can happen at any time during the first 2 years of your little one's life. So what are those causes, whether they be developmental or environmental, that can trigger a sleep regression? The first one, and the most common one, is that around 3 to 4 months, your baby's sleep patterns start to change. This is because they are becoming out of a newborn sleep cycle and moving towards a more adult-like sleep cycle. It's more mature. This means they wake more frequently during the night and therefore need to learn how to resettle themselves. It can also mean that they're about to drop a nap, go say from 5 naps to 4 naps a day. And this can in itself trigger a sleep regression. If you're unsure as to whether your little one is ready to drop a nap, there's plenty of information on our website and YouTube channel about how to manage nap transitions. So the next cause of a sleep regression can be that they are learning a new skill. So now that your little one is no longer in the newborn phase, they are becoming very much aware of the world around them. They're starting to babble, they're starting to take notice of everything, and they might even start to roll over. And because their body is very busy doing all of this, it can trigger a sleep regression and have them struggling to sleep. Then, of course, there's a growth spurt. If they are busy and their body is putting a lot of energy into growing, they might need a bit more food. That can also disrupt their sleep at this age. They may even go through some separation anxiety. If you have decided to move them into their own room, for instance, or they're becoming very aware of the fact that you are a person that means something to them, and when you leave, and that's usually when you're putting them down to sleep, they don't like it. So separation anxiety can cause them to have issues over settling to sleep. So the next sign is an environmental change. So if you've moved house, or you have travelled, or you've just gone and stayed over at a friend's for a night, that can all trigger a sleep regression because it's a change in a routine. And now they're more aware of these changes. That's why they can trigger a sleep regression. And finally, if your little one has been unwell, that can very easily derail their sleep schedule quite naturally. So we've looked at what can trigger a sleep regression, but then what does the sleep regression itself actually look like? So the top 5 signs that you need to look out for are increased night waking and shorter naps, difficulty falling asleep. So if they were previously settling nicely, going down very happily, but now they are not, that's also a good sign that they are going through a sleep regression. A disrupted nap routine is also another indicator, as is if they are grumpy when they wake up. That means they have not had enough sleep. So it's usually as a result of a short nap, they're going to wake up grumpy. And finally, they would be more clingy at bedtime and nap time, linking back to the separation anxiety trigger. So those are the 5 top things that are really strong signs that your little one is going through a sleep regression. So now we come to the important bit. How do you manage and how do you survive the 4-month sleep regression? Number 1, and always top of my list, is establish a solid bedtime routine. If you haven't had one up until now, now is the time to do it. It needs to be regular at the same time every night, and it needs to follow a recognized pattern so that you're giving your baby all the sleep cues that they need, that it's time to go to bed. This could be a warm bath, followed by a baby massage, then a feed, then a book and a cuddle, and then you put them down to sleep, drowsy, but not fast asleep. That is your top aim, to have this solid bedtime routine. The second step is to make sure that the sleep environment is absolutely perfect for your little one, and it gives them the best opportunity to fall asleep. Gone are the days where they could sleep anywhere and through anything. So now they need a dedicated sleep space. And that sleep space needs to be at the correct temperature, which is 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. And it needs to be dark or dimly lit. So I would always advise using blackout blinds because that helps with early morning wakings, and it also puts extra pressure on baby to stay asleep during nap times during the day. You could also put a night light in for nighttime feedings. It means that if you have to go in at night, you're going to disturb them less and you can also see what you're doing. And finally, the white noise machine. If you've not used one yet, then now is the time to get one. White noise machines cut out ambient sound. And as your baby is now more aware of their environment, they will be disturbed by noises, especially during the day when they're trying to take a nap. So step number 3 is to help your baby to learn to self-settle. Now, some of you might think that this is too young, and if you don't want to put your baby down unless they're fast asleep, then that's fine. You carry on doing that. However, I would like to suggest you do not have to give up your cuddles and your closeness with your baby. The thing about feeding and rocking your baby to sleep is that if they wake up in the night, that's what they will need in order to resettle because they haven't learned to do it any other way. The longer you leave that, the harder it is for both you and them to give that up. So if you are rocking and feeding your baby to sleep, I would suggest now is the time to slowly wean yourself off that and instead feed them before it's time to put them down to sleep, and then hold them and give them a cuddle. And then when they are drowsy but not fast asleep, then put them down. A great way for them to practice being in their crib without you is to put them in the crib during the day when there's no pressure to sleep and just let them play there for a short while. So if you need to go take a shower or go do a chore that you can't take baby with you, lay them safely in their crib, put a mobile up, give them something to look at, and leave them for a short period of time and just let them be on their own, happily in their sleep space, getting used to the fact that this is a really nice, safe place to be without the pressure of sleep. Step number 4, know how much sleep is age appropriate for your baby in a 24-hour period. 4-month-old babies on average need between 12 to 15 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. And you'll need to know that in order to gauge how much daytime sleep they need to balance out what nighttime sleep they're getting. There'll be a link in the description box below to our 4-month sleep schedule. And if you take a look at that schedule, it'll tell you exactly how much sleep your baby needs in a 24-hour period and how to break down that sleep in such a way that their sleep is balanced between day and night. It's also important that during a sleep regression, you act on sleep cues and you keep an eye on them. So you need to know what your baby's sleep cues are and know how long they can stay awake for. Babies of this age can usually stay awake for between 1.5 to 2 hours. So that's a good benchmark. Some will do for less, some will do for longer, and it will depend on the time of day and how busy their day is. That's why sleep cues are so important, because it's their way of telling you that they need to sleep. By the same token, if they don't seem tired, you can stretch the wake windows a bit because maybe they're ready to drop a nap. The next thing I would advise is be creative with feeding. It's very tempting when your baby is waking up more frequently at night to think that they need more food. The good way to find out if it's the food that they need or whether they're just looking for the sucking for comfort is that if they're feeding for a very short period of time and then nodding off again, they're relying on it as a comfort rather than a need for food. If they're taking a full feed, then of course they are definitely hungry. And they could be more hungry because they're going through a growth spurt. So this is why you have to be creative with the feeding process. And there are 2 things that you can do to ensure that your baby is getting enough food and to set your mind at rest that you know you've given them enough food. At this stage, I often suggest a dream feed, which means feeding your baby even though they haven't woken up before you go to bed, because that gives them an extra boost and it could help them sleep for longer at night. So they're not going to be waking up because of hunger. So that won't be the trigger of the sleep regression because you know you fed them before you went to bed. Secondly, I would advise gradually increasing the amount of food that they're having during the day. So you could feed them, if you're breastfeeding, for 5 minutes longer during the day and add ½ an ounce to formula feeds. This is a small amount that they are able to accommodate during the day, which means they should hopefully be less hungry at night, and it could help them sleep for longer at night and resettle them back into their sleep schedule. So the next thing I want you to try is not going to your baby every time they make a sound or murmur once you put them down to sleep. Because of your baby's changing sleep cycle, they are going to be coming in and out of sleep more frequently. And this is something they need to learn to manage. And often you create an issue by the fact that they make a sound when they're coming out of one of these sleep cycles. And instinctively, we've all done it, we go and check that they're okay. And then we pat them or pick them up and you think they're waking up. If you give them the chance to resettle, you may find that they are more than capable of doing it by themselves. So wait a few minutes when you hear them making a noise. And even if they're fussing a bit, don't be tempted to go in. Of course, if they get upset, you must go in and you must comfort them. But try not to go in as soon as you hear a sound, because you may be surprised how quickly they resettle on their own. Now, I'm not going to pretend that sleep regressions aren't a challenge. They most definitely are, especially the first one. And it is, as I said at the beginning, very daunting and can sometimes just fill you with dread and you think, how am I going to manage it? So don't be afraid to enlist the help of friends and family. If someone's offering to take baby for a while, let them do so. Sit down and have a cup of tea when they finally have that nap. Take care of yourself, because it will be a challenging time, but you will get things back on track, I assure you. And finally, I would say consider baby wearing. On those days when it's just not working, despite everything you've tried and they still don't want to sleep, it's more important that they get their sleep. And so you don't get caught up into this horrible cycle of overtiredness, which is hugely going to impact on your nighttime sleep. Just try baby wearing. As long as they get that daytime sleep, they are more likely to sleep well at night. I'm a big believer in sleep breeds sleep. So the fact that your baby's not slept during the day will almost guarantee they are not going to sleep well at night. So you could try baby wearing over a few days or a couple of weeks, or you could just use it on those days when you're trying to put all these things I've talked about today in place and they're just not working. So just go ahead, have your baby close, make sure they get the sleep they need, and you have the freedom to go about your day and you're not feeling like you're just pacing the house, rocking your baby. So there you have it, my list of proven strategies that can really help you manage that sleep regression successfully. Don't forget to download our free nap and bedtime cheat sheet, where you will learn how to establish strong pre-nap and bedtime routines that will be essential to managing your sleep regression. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Until next time, goodbye.